Hello, friends. We're about to start a new section together, covering different parts that actually exist in SEO. This section, which you will probably know what it is. You might know it as performance or core web vitals. And well, it's one of the most complex parts that we have to handle in SEO. It's considered part of the optimization section. It's also a bit tough because we actually have to work closely with the technical team and move things forward with them. Also because the technical team can be a bit difficult to deal with. So you really need to be highly proficient in this area in order to be able to work with them. To gain this proficiency, well, I previously recorded a course. It was a course specifically about GT metrics. Back then, Lighthouse wasn't really a topic, but it does use the Lighthouse engine, and that was about 4 years ago. Now, this course that I'm recording is an update on that topic, and well, this time we're directly using Google's Lighthouse code. We might make some references to GT metrics here and there. In cases where GT metrics has added some add-ons or extensions, we'll cover those as well. But at the beginning, we need to see what the story is, where it all started, where GT metrics came from, and what existed before GT metrics or Lighthouse even existed. What was the history? We want to talk about these things and move on to gaining a better understanding of them. And after we have a better understanding, then figure out how to fix them. Like before, it will probably be several episodes. I think we'll have around 20, maybe a bit more episodes. We're going to go a bit deeper, approach it more professionally. I hope it can help us achieve these results. This is episode 0, or the first one, where we're going to start together. Alright, I'm going back to my desktop screen so you can clearly see and have this particular page readily available. On my desktop right now, you probably have already noticed that I am currently using OBS, which is Open Broadcaster software, to meticulously do this recording. Let me quickly minimize it so that OBS completely goes away from view. And it has moved a little bit to this side of the screen. Now you can see my entire desktop. So OBS is out of the way and won't be a bother anymore. So there's a significant and widely recognized term known as core web vitals, which essentially refers to and means what are considered the absolutely vital or main and most crucial elements that contribute to a high quality user experience on the web. Where did this whole thing come from and why? I'm going to explain the reason from my own perspective. I'm saying that in order for Google to show search results, its SERP more accurately, it's testing different elements and factors. Over the years, it has introduced various methods. Sometimes it gives more value to links all of a sudden. Sometimes it focuses on performance, sometimes on content and other different things. All of these influence each other. So what I'm saying is that Google is looking for elements that are actually influenced or are influential. They should be considered as its own KPIs in the conclusions, which are under its control and can be measured more accurately and precisely so it can determine their validity. Well, we know that at the end of the day, link building, especially in countries like ours, it's really hard to verify their authenticity. Did you actually pay for this link to get a sponsored article, or did they genuinely like us and give us a link? We all know that link earning is different from link building. But nowadays, we know that the impact of sponsored articles and links has significantly decreased compared to before. But what has become more influential? We can say that one of them is Core Web Vitals. So what exactly are Core Web Vitals? In this video, we want to discuss where they came from together. This episode might get a bit long. A few minutes have already passed. It's already been 4 minutes, and we haven't said anything yet. Core Web Vitals has introduced 3 factors. If you go to Google's own search console, you'll see these there as well. LCP, FIDI, CLS. I don't want to explain each of these one by one. In this episode, I just want to talk about where these came from and why they were introduced. The first one, LCP, as you all know, stands for Largest Contentful Paint. It's the element, the largest element that gets painted, that gets rendered. FID stands for First Input Delay, and the last one is CLS, which is Cumulative Layout Shift. Are these 3 enough? You see, in Google Search Console, it's these 3 that are being measured. For example, if I go into this now, you'll see that if there's an issue, I have LCP, I have IMP, and I also have CLS. These 3 are listed. So if there's an issue, we have them here. If there isn't, we don't. But in practice, these 3 are the most important for Google, and it says it checks 3 stages. The first stage is loading. The second stage is interactivity. Loading means basically how long it takes for something to load to be rendered. You see, they've used a painting metaphor here I specifically chose this picture because, well, it shows things in a more engaging way. I've invented something new here myself. This is loading. On the image, I can draw a line for myself, pay attention to it. This loading refers to how long it takes for an element, an image, or something, usually an image, to load in the LCP and be painted, rendered in our browser. Painting or rendering interactivity. Naturally, when a user comes to your page, they perform an action and expect a result. And this back and forth of activities is what happens. Users, well, they usually don't have much patience. So they probably have certain expectations. If I click on a button and it takes 10 seconds for me to see a reaction, this falls into, for example, the realm of patience. Of course, here it's showing an old picture of PyD, but this new Pi has recently come and replaced it, and CLS, visual stability, refers to how stable the visual representation of your page is, how much the visuals jump around, or the scroll shifts. When an image loads, your text shifts around. You go, we're almost familiar with it. All these topics are referred to as, for example, this is what happens, the story of a visual journey. Stability, or now we have something else as well. Visual compatibility and competitiveness, which create things like VC and so on. Let me take a look at the tool. Ours gets disabled. We went and actually disabled it completely. Let's go back to the very beginning of where this whole story truly started from, right at the outset. All of these are this guy's images. If you're struggling and you come and ask, what is this? Where did it come from? It goes back to this guy whose name is Patrick Mannon. The first person who was concerned about performance on the web was this Mr. Patrick Mannon. I think he's American. At least he was living in America when he brought up this topic. You can see his picture on the webpagetest.org website. He's the founder of Catchpoint and now the Catchpoint business. For now, let's leave that aside and go back to see where we started. This guy used to work at AOL. At America Online, you can see that for the first time in 2008, he published this article on January 30th, 2008, where he expressed his concern about performance. His concern about performance was focused on the only browser at that time, well, not the only one, but the most widely used browser then, IE, because there were other browsers before that as well. I'm not saying Mozilla or Firefox existed, but there was another one whose name I can't remember right now. It was a green-colored browser. It had a green icon. I can't remember, but it did exist. But those browsers, well, he examined this issue on IE, and of course, there were no mobile devices back then. It was all desktop. He brought up the performance of loading certain things and discussed performance in general. Patrick Mannon also created a code, or more precisely a DLL, which was actually an extension for IE, and he provided it so we could check and see if our performance was good or not. The source code is still available on Git and SourceForge. I think it was right here that I opened it. The code is also on SourceForge. Here it is. Look, this is the version. He released version 2 of its files here. If you have it on Windows and IE, it will install and you can actually use it to do this. This source is from 10 years ago, and there should be even older sources as well. But here, I found this version. What exactly did it do? It would just check how many loadings and how many paintings there were. Of course, it wasn't really about painting, it was about how long it took to display. So it basically and comprehensively checked the overall performance of the system. A little later than that, let me see if I can find why slow now. Here's the web page test tool, which is quite useful. AOL, Wikipedia, a brief lighthouse history. Found Wieslow a little later, about 2 years after. I think Yahoo released something called Wieslow. I was deeply engrossed in reading about the fascinating history of Wieslow. I think I specifically searched for it here. The official website is still technically up and accessible, but it's pretty much completely dead now, meaning it's no longer actively maintained or updated. Therefore, we would definitely have to fork it to make any meaningful use of it. I believe it still contains some valuable documentation, perhaps even in Spanish, but let's thoroughly check out its source code to confirm and explore its functionalities. Yahoo also came out a few years later. I think it was about 2 years later that they released something like this. Its source code is still available. You can have it on Firefox, and it's also available on IE and Chrome. Yeah, here you can see it on Chrome and Firefox, though I think they made it for Linux. I don't know how it works on Windows, but its license goes back 12, 13, 14 years, so you can use these sources. I tested the one by Mr. Patrick Minen on IE, which I managed to get running with a lot of trouble, and tested it on the device. There wasn't anything from it that was like what we have today. But well, the story goes back to that time. Here is also a document that he wrote the following year for Wieslow. He was working under the same company, AOL. He wrote its history. It's interesting, you should read it. Here, there's also an ebook-like thing by another person. He has mentioned it. Again, we need to search separately to find that ebook. I couldn't find it, but he has referenced it. Let's move on from this. The history starts from right here. The foundation was formed called the Page Test Foundation. It was also sometimes called Web Test, where the idea was to address concerns about how to improve our website's performance. At that time, it had no effect on Google's ranking at all. It was mostly about UX and the kind of user experience they wanted to provide for users. But later on in the year, I think around 2013 or 2014, now let's find the one about Lighthouse. Lighthouse history, which again, this particular gentleman's blog, his name is Patrick. Let me take a moment to find our channel. Here it is, Patrick. I believe it's something like coal, or perhaps clock, or something along those lines. I don't really know how to accurately pronounce his name. Let's just call it Class for now. This particular individual, ever since he initially joined the Lighthouse organization, has consistently been explaining in detail how the entire project was developed and progressed. I believe he has been continuously referring to this specific project since as far back as 2013 or perhaps even 2014. Let me just quickly verify what exact year it was. He frequently keeps mentioning the years 13, 14, and 15 here, right from the very beginning of his involvement. He always says something like 12 and 16 that we came and started. At first, it was actually a separate plugin just for PWA and so on. It actually grew bigger later on. Anyway, you can go read its history yourself. I don't want to tell its story here. Later on, it was actually introduced as one of the really important features for the future, and it even became part of the RMMM measurement criteria, and Lighthouse was basically born from it. Of course, it was born in 2012 or 2016, but it was just a very small thing at first, and later on, its performance aspect became really important, and it was included in search consoles. Its history goes back to this point. Actually, I think the source code for Lighthouse was also here. Of course, this is a comparison between them. It's showing which one has what. You can have the free source of Lighthouse and use its APIs. The same goes for Web Page Test. As you can see on the website webpagetest.org. It's by Patrick Minen. It has a lot of interesting features. It has some really cool functionalities. Now, these are the issues with filtering in Iran and things like that. Of course, this catch point wasn't blocked. Right now, when I try, it's blocked. Let me try to start its test and see. Yeah, it works. You enter your site here. Core Web Vitals, Lighthouse, Visual Compression, or Image Comparison. Now, as you can see, well, no, the test I ran doesn't show up here. It has really good visual reports. Definitely make use of it. If I run it now, it'll take a little while. For example, Core Web Vitals. This is the SEO lab. It is currently running a comprehensive test on a 4G mobile device, ensuring optimal performance and search engine visibility. This one also gives really good reports. Its visual aspect is very appealing. It runs its test 3 times. We don't need to deal with this one, it's closed. Once it's done, it'll give us the result. Oh, is it more reliable than Lighthouse? No. Run Lighthouse tests on your own device. It's much better and also much easier. Here, you can easily open and access any website you desire. Press F12 or right-click and then carefully select Inspect, and then you'll gain access to the dedicated Lighthouse tab, which will run the comprehensive performance test based on your own device. Definitely make sure to perform this entire procedure in incognito mode so that any installed plugins do not inadvertently affect the results. As you can see, I have a lot of extensions and plugins. Try to customize it for mobile and desktop. Of course, do the same for your desktop as well. Remove these parts. Don't fool yourself with this score of 3 and then it suddenly shows 100 or 90 something. Don't be deceived by SEO specialists. Let me give you this score and tell you it's high. These are usually fine, but it's the performance that often has more issues and problems. Check the performance box, run the analysis, and it will give you the result. But I don't want to bring those up right now. I want to see what Catchpoint gives me. Webpagetest.org, or Catchpoint as it's also known. Of course, Catchpoint is the name of the business. It's the company that owns it, and its owner is Mr. Patrick Minen. Alright, the result is in. Observer couldn't get a result. Couldn't get the result to give us, but usually it does provide the result. I haven't run a test beforehand. I can retest it and get the result again. You see, it can give you very different reports as well. Performance summary. I hope it gives it to me. It couldn't generate this report. You see, its report is down, but use it alongside GTmetrix and Lighthouse. But your final benchmark should be the Core Web Vitals, which you actually have in Search Console. This is the benchmark. Whenever you're green here and stay green, that's what matters. Mobile and desktop. Google sees this, and its testing is more real because it comes from your users' devices. It's giving you what's called the crux, the Chrome User Experience Report. If you look at these, it says the data is coming from real user experiences that your users are having with the same internet in Iran. So if your audience is in Iran, it's reflecting that back to you, and that's accurate. Sometimes people come and say, hey, we checked it on page speed. Or for example, we checked it on GTmetrix. The score is much better. This and that and over there, nothing is blocked at all. Keep this sentence in mind. We SEOs go there and run tests. So we even refresh it a few times. In the end, a good number comes up. You've probably seen it on LinkedIn. Everyone posts it like, my score hit 98, amazing, we crushed it. Now we SEOs start bragging about it. Over there, nothing is blocked at all. Forget about it. That's not even an accurate result. That result is just based on the tester that's running the test at that moment. The test is being run in America. The test might be using a powerful server, a powerful device, for example. What really matters is what your user's actual experience is. If any SEO manages to turn this green, you can be sure they've achieved a good result for you. Otherwise, page speed, GTmetrix, or even this web page test tool we just introduced, they all showed green. The score was 100. I don't know, these were all there. These are just artificially perfect too. It's good for testing though. Testing is fine. Your developer can use these tests to quickly get feedback, but that's not the real result. Wait for the real result. In fact, I mean in Lighthouse. Get the Core Web Vitals from Search Console. You can also run tests using Lighthouse on desktop. That's also a very important metric. Like I previously mentioned, it's highly recommended to utilize the incognito browsing mode when dealing with the snippet. I mean, what exactly is it called, that particular feature? Inspect, I keep forgetting everything. When you press F12 and use inspect, you can run your tests there. That's fine for developer testing, but for the final results, use Core Web Vitals from Search Console. This will help increase your impressions. Don't consider anything else. For now, that's the history. Now, let's move on to the next sections.